AI compute financing just changed shape. Data centers aren't getting funded like software companies anymore. They're getting financed like power plants, aircraft fleets, fiber networks, and Nvidia just made it official with MOUs targeting over $500 billion from Apollo, BlackRock, Blackstone, Brookfield, Goldman Sachs, and KKR. Today we're breaking down the three clocks that decide whether one of these deals holds together, the circular financing debate critics are raising, and why any builder leaning on a single AI vendor should be paying attention. Let's get into it.
Welcome to this deep dive, looking at our stack of financial reports and security briefings today. We are charting a massive shift in how the digital economy is actually built.
Yeah, we usually picture the cloud as just, algorithms floating in the ether somewhere. But the reality is concrete, steel, and massive amounts of electricity.
Right. So our mission today is to look at how that physical backbone is being financed and why the shifting debt models of AI data centers will directly impact the cost of the software you use to run your business.
And the scale of this transition is staggering. The demand for compute power it's completely changed the funding landscape.
Because it's not being backed like a typical software startup anymore.
Exactly. AI infrastructure is being financed like a power plant or, an aircraft fleet.
Right. And for context on that demand, we're looking at reports that OpenAI just crossed a $40 billion annualized revenue pace.
Which is just wild.
It is. So we are seeing Nvidia currently working with firms like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs to mobilize over $500 billion for new AI data centers.
Yeah, $500 billion.
So you mentioned these finance models are treating data centers like power plants. How do they actually measure the risks on something that massive?
Well, they use project finance style risk models, meaning they're underwriting individual facilities against specific cash flow timelines. It's all governed by what they call the three clocks.
Wait, the three clocks?
Yeah, so the first clock is build speed, like how fast can the facility actually go live?
Okay, that makes sense.
Then the second is demand timing. So when will the customers actually start paying? And the third is the duration of the financing itself.
So it's basically a massive race against time and physical constraints. We're even seeing Amazon AWS backing coal-reliant grids just to secure the raw electricity for these sites.
They absolutely are.
But I have to push back a bit here, because critics look at this and call it circular financing.
Oh, sure.
Like, if tech companies and Wall Street are essentially just lending each other billions to buy more of their own GPUs, are we actually building sustainable infrastructure or just, recycling tech hype?
No, it's a valid concern, and it represents a massive financial risk. Because if the market is just inflating valuations in a closed loop rather than underwriting real compute demand,
right,
a collapse in confidence could just freeze the whole system. But beyond the financial risk, treating AI as centralized physical infrastructure means it suddenly adopts the exact same fatal flaws as the oil industry.
Which brings us to physical choke points.
Yeah.
To understand how fragile a centralized system is, we just have to look at a recent event in the Black Sea involving an oil terminal called Novorossiysk.
Yeah, that terminal is a critical valve for Russia's export economy. And it was crippled not by some massive naval fleet, but by 4 relatively cheap Ukrainian Sea Baby surface drones.
Wait, just 4 of them?
Just 4. And they inflicted $420 million in damage and idled critical oil tankers.
That's crazy, because Russia had a $2 billion radar shield and physical boom barriers in place.
Cooked, yeah.
But those 4 little drones didn't overpower the shield. They just waited for a boom gate to briefly open during a scheduled 5-minute window. Just letting a departing Russian ship out.
Yeah.
It's like spending $2 billion on enterprise firewalls, but getting wiped out because someone politely held the server room door open for the pizza guy.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The vulnerability wasn't a hole in the hardware. It was a hole in the schedule. The terminal had to stay open just enough to let commerce flow.
Right. You can't just lock it down forever.
Exactly. So those drones slipped in and destroyed the critical docking structures and transformer yard. proving that you don't need to sink a warship to cause massive economic damage. You just target the unglamorous, essential choke points.
So bringing this back to you, the listener, if you're a solo creator or running a small business, you probably aren't building a $500 million data center.
Probably not.
But you rely heavily on the centralized digital backbone. So how does this massive Wall Street debt and physical vulnerability actually reach the small business level?
Well, it comes down to the mechanism behind those 3 clocks of AI project finance we talked about.
Yeah.
Because these new data centers are financed with massive loans that demand immediate, strict payback schedules.
The banks want their money.
Exactly. Goldman Sachs wants their money. So AI companies can't afford to subsidize cheap software subscriptions anymore. If server demand drops for a month or a new model is delayed, they still have to pay the banks.
So they immediately pass that cost on to the end user by jacking up API prices or subscription tiers.
Exactly the case. The debt structures behind the APIs you use every day are incredibly tight. If that circular financing loop stumbles or one of those 3 clocks runs out of time,
the vendor's pricing models will just snap overnight to cover the shortfall.
Overnight, yeah.
Which means the practical takeaway here is vital for you. Do not get locked into a single AI vendor. Build workflow flexibility right now.
For sure. You want to ensure that if a specific provider's financial model collapses under the weight of these massive infrastructure debts, you aren't just collateral damage. Diversification is really the only way to protect your operations.
Mm-hmm.
And, it leaves us with something quite sobering to consider regarding the physical side of this equation.
Absolutely. Because as AI data centers become the essential, heavily financed backbone of the global economy, structured exactly like oil pipelines and power plants, how long until these massive, power-hungry server farms become the next physical targets in geopolitical conflicts?
That's the shift. Compute is getting underwritten like infrastructure now, and the financing structure behind your API bill matters more than most builders realize. If this was helpful, go ahead and like it, comment which financing structure worries you most, and subscribe so you catch tomorrow's episode. Talk soon.